Hi there, everybody. Welcome to the Turnkey Consulting webinar series. So this time we're actually talking about the GRC 12 upgrade. So the stunning title that we've got for you today is The Clock Strikes 12, How to Streamline Your GRC 12 Upgrade. Now, of course, the impending deadline for the GRC 12 upgrade is the 31st of December 2020, as that's when the previous releases go out of support. So we thought we'd put on this webinar really just to take away some of the mystique behind the upgrade process and try to understand what that actually means from a client and an upgrade point of view. So my name's Simon Persson. I'm the Director of Operations for Turnkey. I've got a relatively global role now, talking through all of the delivery capabilities of the business and how we conduct our services with our clients. But today isn't about me. So I'm delighted to introduce our contributors for today. We've actually got a guest one today from SAP with Thomas Reinhard, a longtime friend of the company and personally as well. So welcome to you, Thomas. Thank you for joining us today. And we've also super. And we've also got Lewis Lee, our director from our Malaysian office. So Lewis leads our delivery capability there.
Hello.
So first of all, Thomas, it's been a long time since we've spoken, but I gather your role has changed and morphed over the years since I first came across you as just a risk management specialist within SAP. But now I hear you've got a very grand job title of the VP of Risk and all things GRC in the Asia Pacific region. Is that true? And how do you keep yourself busy with that kind of role?
No, it's true. When we first met, I was actually, yeah, you're right, the solution owner for SAP Risk Management. Then it evolved when we created a Center of Excellence team for GRC. I joined that one as well. And now it's true. I'm focusing on APJ in Greater China. I still have a global role, so I still help my colleagues on the two-line defense solutions, so risk management, process control, audit management, and business equity screening. But my major focus now these days, and what keeps me busy, is pushing GRC and APJ, helping partners, customers, or anybody really carrying the word of GRC around the region.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, that sounds like a very widespread and varied role. So I know you'll be excellent at that, and I know you've got some exciting things to talk about later on, particularly around the GRC 12 topic. And Lewis, how are things going in Malaysia? I know that you've got a growing team there, and yeah. I see lots and lots of great stuff coming out of our Malaysian hub.
Yeah, indeed, it's been a pretty busy back-to-back year, I would say. So we have expanded on the managed service. So we're supporting more clients in the cybersecurity needs. And also we have expanded to support some customers in non-cyber as well. So in the area of IAM and PAM. So we are moving into uncharted territory, which is good. So overall, Absolutely. It's been a busy year for us.
Fantastic, fantastic. That's definitely what we want to hear. So back to the topic of today, the GRC upgrade and what it really looks like. So we've divided this webinar into two sections really. So we've got Thomas leading off first of all with a brief overview as to what that GRC 12 upgrade gives you. And then we've got the view from the trenches really. We've got Lewis talking about how we make it easy from a turnkey point of view. So Thomas, if I can invite you to take us through your overview. We've got about 20 minutes worth of content for you there. I'm going to have to be a little bit precious on time, so we'll try to get that done in time. But as far as I'm concerned, over to you.
No, I will. I'll trust me. I'll make sure that we don't go over it. Actually, we don't really need 20 minutes for that. So, well, first of all, hello and everyone from my side as well, and thank you for joining our session today. And thanks, Turnkey, for inviting me. It's always a pleasure. So in the next few minutes, I'd like to share some thoughts on what benefits you can leverage in addition to remaining compliant on a supported version by upgrading your SAP GRC system to version 12.0. But before we start this, and I'm pretty sure since you are in this webinar that you already know the governance, risk, and compliance offering from SAP, but I simply wanted to highlight a few things as it has really greatly changed since the original inception of our very first GRC solution about 15 years ago. We have, of course, continued to invest in our core GRC offering, hence SAP Access Control for access governance, SAP Process Control for internal control and compliance, and SAP Risk Management for enterprise risk management, which will be the focus today. But we also added new solutions over the time for internal audits, for fraud detection and investigation, but also cybersecurity and data protection. In parallel, we have, of course, continued to enhance our international trade management solution. But For today, let's focus on our core GRC, which is the focus of this webinar, and let's discuss about version 12.0 of SAP GRC. First of all, just to reassure you, this is not a new version. It was actually released back in 2018 already, so it's a tested, proven, and in-market version for quite some time. Since the release, we've of course recommended to our customers that they upgrade their environment to the latest version for two major reasons. The first one is because the mainstream maintenance of SAP GRC 10.x, which includes 10.0 and 10.1, will end on December 31st, 2020, so in a couple of weeks now. That's the first reason. But to me, there's actually a much more compelling one, the additional features and capabilities that version 12.0 actually brings. And this is what I'll try to illustrate during our session today. There have been three real areas of improvement for version 12.0. The first relates to usability of the solution. It includes a new Fiori look and feel and also persona-based navigation. It also includes overview pages, which are new entry pages with key performance indicator type reporting. The second area of improvement relates to integration, specifically to on-premise and cloud SAP applications. And last but not least, and actually one of the most important one, the new functionalities for continued improvement. These improvements mostly result from the collaboration with customers during the customer engagement initiative programs, for instance. And there are many new functionalities that have been delivered. But since we have limited time today, and Simon justly reminded me of that, I had to make a choice of what I think are the most compelling ones. Nevertheless, you'll be able to find more detail during our slide deck, and at the end, I'll point you out to where you can find more information as well. So first things first, and since this is really shared across all the solutions, the visual harmonization. As I'm sure you all know, Fiori is the SAP layout for new solutions, and other SAP solutions have been adopting the same look and feel. This is our look and feel going forward. This not only means that users get the same look and feel across all their SAP landscape, but it also means that they can access all their solutions within the same launchpad. And finally, it means that GRC activities such as access requests or risk assessments or control testing can be performed in the very same environment as the rest of your SAP processes, so finance or HR. Therefore, GRC becomes an integral part of the business as usual, so to say, not an afterthought, not something done on the side. Now, since this is an upgrade though, we have not removed the previous look and feel. As a result, if your users prefer to continue leveraging the NetWeaver Business Client layout, they can absolutely do so. We won't prevent them from doing that. And if they prefer to perform their GRC activities in the new Fiori look and feel, they can also do it. And last but not least, it doesn't prevent the offline forms from being used. So for those of you who already use or provide input via the SAP Interactive Forms by Adobe, you know, the PDF file sent by email, you can still do that. Fiori or NetWeaver Business Client, it doesn't make a difference. The SAP Interactive Forms by Adobe are not going anywhere. Now, this was the new common look and feel, right? Now, if you allow me, I'd like now to go over the individual enhancements for SAP Access Control, SAP Process Control, and SAP Risk Management. So let's start with Access Control 12.0. In addition to the Fiori layout that I mentioned, you may recall that I also mentioned a persona-based navigation. Well, in short, for each role, we're mapping the Fiori tiles and the previous web dimmer screens, but also any new Fiori apps or new pages. Whenever a user is granted access to a role, they will automatically see the tiles for their role. They can then very easily personalize their launchpad. So with the tiles they need, they can remove the ones they don't want, move them around, change the colors of the background, and much more. But also there is a search in case there are tiles from many SAP solutions and they don't know exactly which ones they're looking for. They simply have to type in the search bar and then check or uncheck the tile, and it will be shown or hidden directly on their launchpad. So it's extremely easy to use. One of the great additions I find of version 12.0 are the overview pages. You may actually recall that back when we launched 10.1 for process control and risk management in what seems to be a lifetime ago now, we had entry pages. Well, in version 12.0, SAP Access Control has received a lot of KPI reports in these new overview page dashboards. I just listed a few of them on the column on the left, and you can see a graphical illustration on the right. going to another topic, the integration with success factors has been delivered. Now, most of it already started in 10.1, and I do recall a Turnkey Consulting blog, I think it was by you, Simon, back in 2017, that mentioned it for 10.1. But in 12.0, the integration between access control and success factors is incomplete, and it now enables customers to use access control to manage access requests, analyze segregation of duties and critical access risk, but also manage business roles and provision users for SAP success factors. So what started in 10.1 is now completely finished and available in 12.0 as well. You may also have heard of the SAP Cloud Identity Access Governance solution. This is an SAP cloud service specifically designed for access governance for SAP cloud solutions, such as Ariba, Fieldglass, S/4HANA Cloud, and so on. Well, in version 12.0 of SAP Access Control, we also delivered a native integration between this service and access control using what we called a bridge. This actually demonstrates an important step for companies adopting S/4HANA Cloud solutions. Now that Access Control 12.0 integrates with Cloud Identity Access Governance, the risk analysis, user provisioning process, and so on can be catered for compliantly across SAP on-premise and cloud applications natively. Something else is with S/4HANA changing the authorization model, and as transactions actually either become obsolete or are simplified, a new access control risk library with out-of-the-box updated rule definitions for S/4HANA rules has been the #1 requirement for our customers who've been migrating to SAP S/4HANA. And this is what we delivered. And of course, with continuous updates to the rule set for new S/4HANA apps and so on and so forth. So this is really something that customers had asked for when we started working on 12, and this is what we launched. Something else that customers had been asking for is the extension of the emergency access management or EAM functionality into the HANA database. Well, by providing a simple HANA connector, organizations can now track actions performed within the HANA database, and they can continue to utilize the firefighter ID concept for those requesting privileged access. So that was SAP Access Control 12. Now, progressing to the next solution, let's discuss what is new in version 12.0 for SAP Process Control. Once again, the overview pages, and I really do like overview pages because it's not only graphical, it's also a drill down into the data itself. There were actually two new Fiori apps that were added with this respect. The first is test of the control effectiveness, which enables users to perform review and process tests of effectiveness for controls. The app displays all the control testing information that the user is currently assigned to, with details of the required test steps, the relevant control, and other test-related information. Users, are able to access and then upload relevant documentation and record their test of effectiveness results. But the second one, which is actually the one illustrated here, is My Compliant Tasks, which gives the users a clear overall picture of the status of their current work items. Users can review their key metrics, filter the results to focus on their top priorities. And then once they have identified the areas they wish to work on, they can simply use the links built into the charts in the app to open the selected items directly. So it's not just a graphical representation, it's also a navigation aspect. Now, concerning Fiori reports, some Fiori components, you may recall, had been released in version 10.1, such as the monitoring of control status. But there is a new Fiori app that customers had been waiting for, which is the monitor issue status. And it basically helps users review and track issues resulting from control testing. Very simply, graphically again, and being able to access the information. If you recall well what I mentioned earlier, there was a second pillar, which was integration. That was the second topic we worked on. Where for SAP Process Control 12.0, this translated into a new cloud connector, specifically for S/4HANA Cloud. As a result, you can now integrate your on-premise process control system with your SAP S/4HANA Cloud system. It enables continuous control monitoring for this environment as well. So basically, after the implementation is done, after the implementation is implemented, S/4HANA Cloud is available as an option as a connector type parameter when you create a configurable data source. And then in all other respects, you work with the system as you would normally. Now, this is interesting for two factors. First of all, for customers moving to S/4HANA Cloud, but also for customers who have a department or an entity or a subsidiary that works on S/4HANA Cloud and that would like to integrate all the compliance and control aspects in the same process control instance. You can then have one SAP Process Control monitoring your ECC, monitoring your S/4HANA Cloud, and so on and so forth. And it gives you a complete overall picture of where you stand in terms of compliance aspects for your controls. Now, progressing to the third pillar, the process aspects. Here, we've added a standalone job function that enables you to directly check the results of your business rule, but without needing to assign it to a control. So, for example, you could use this to make an ad hoc check on the results of a business rule across the whole enterprise scope without needing to define it as a recurring job. Standalone jobs are creating using the continuous monitoring scheduler in a similar manner to all other job types. So that provides a new additional flexibility that we didn't have in 10.1. And now for the last solution that we'll be discussing today, SAP Risk Management. As for access control and process control, it was enhanced with the Fiori Launchpad and a persona-based navigation. As for both these solutions as well, we provide the user roles, but also you can decide to configure new roles as you require and enable your users to then open whichever app and focus on whichever function they need directly from the Launchpad. So we provide the role, but as previously, you can copy them, you can modify them to tailor it to your requirements. As for SAP Process Control as well, integration was still the second pillar and has still been worked on. And we have a new cloud connector for process control. It was for continuous control monitoring. For risk management, it's for key risk indicators to S/4HANA Cloud. This means that you can now do automated risk monitoring with the key risk indicators for information held in your S/4HANA Cloud systems. This provides the ability of going on exception-based access for, request for risk and only focus on the risk information in case a negative trend is occurring. Now, risk aggregation. And some of you might recall that this was already partially available in SAP Risk Management for quite some time. Actually, if I recall well, back in version 10.0. But it was only available out of the box for one scenario, corporate risks. Well, customers have asked to extend it to the other risk scenario, which is operational risk. And this new feature extends the capability of risk aggregation and now offers risk aggregation, automated risk aggregation for any risk type. So here the system basically calculates an aggregated risk analysis from multiple input risks. Any change in one of these input risks automatically updates the calculation. In this way, you can really set up a hierarchy of risks where the parent risks are automatically synchronized with changes happening in the children risks. Okay, I'm soon to the end, and Simon, I will finish on time, promise, but that's actually not all, right? What I've presented is not everything. Since the release of version 12.0 back in 2018, as you have seen, there have, of course, been many support packages, actually 10 to be very precise. And these support packages include anomaly correction and performance improvement, of course, but they also include many enhancements that have been requested by customers. These can be new Fiori apps, new overview pages, new workflows, more flexibility, and so on and so forth. So as a result, going to version 12.0 is not only a maintenance strategy, it's also to benefit from new capabilities that our product management team has been adding over time and that customers have been requesting. So I've listed here the timeline of the support packages so that you can have an understanding, but you can find a lot more information on the what's new section for each of these solutions directly in the help portal at help.sap.com. Right, I think this was it from my side. I tried to be short and concise, but I know we have a Q&A in case you have more questions at the end. At this stage, I'd like to hand over to Luis from Turnkey Consulting for the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Thomas, that's fantastic. I always get nervous when I invite you to speak because you're so passionate and you always get so much information in. I'm thinking there's no way you're going to hit time, but time and again, you do it and you manage to get closed in exactly the right time. So fantastic. Thanks very much for that. So as you said, yeah, we have got a brief area in the agenda for Q&A later on, but I did just drop something straight into the chat messages just to remind everybody that if you do have questions throughout, I know there was a lot of information that we just sort of downloaded into you on that previous 20 minutes, but if you do have any of those questions, please put them into the Q&A gadget within the Zoom conference details, and we'll try and raise those to Thomas directly. If we don't manage to get to them, then of course we'll follow up afterwards. But yeah, if we can now move on, if I could invite Lewis to share his screen, and we can start talking about what that upgrade path actually looks like, and how Turnkey makes that easy. And then we'll try and circle back with you later on, Thomas. But thank you very much for that. That's exceptionally helpful.
Right. Thank you, Thomas, and thank you, Simon. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. What I would like to present today is on a GRC technical upgrade to 12 made easy. So essentially what the agenda that we will go through today will be the roadmap. Then we'll go through defining your scope, technical upgrade, and then testing and deployment. So essentially in this slide here, what we're trying to emphasize is that upgrading of GRC to 12.0 or 12 is not complex, and neither is it difficult to implement. So we at Turnkey, we have come out with the roadmap that's make up three key phrases. The first being scoping and technical upgrade. In that phrase, what will happen essentially is that there will be a review to the scope and the actual technical upgrade of the systems. And then, of course, unit testing will need to take place. And typically the estimate during that phase is 20 days. And after which, the next phase, as we go to testing, QA, this is the stage where the change will move to quality. And of course, in quality, validation and confirmation testing will need to take place to ensure that we test the features, the functionality, current functionality that is not broken. And in that phase, typically it will take 20 days. And finally, in the deployment phase, this is the phase where the production environment is being upgraded and the solution will be operated. Typically, it will take 5 days. So all in all, if you look at the scoping, the testing, and the deployment phase, it will take 2 to 2.5 months for the technical upgrade. Move to the next slide. Under the defining your scope phrase, what we like to talk about is what should be in the scope and what is out of scope for the technical upgrade. So what in scope should be reviewing your GRC 12.0 prerequisite. So we should look at what are the system configuration is required for the upgrade, and as well as defining the target patch levels and identifying the technical constraint. And you should look at system testing and support user acceptance testing. So in that phase, it's after you have upgraded your landscape in testing, in QA, testing needs to be taken place in order for you to test and ensure that current feature is still working as it should, and nothing is broken, as well as to test and look at the new feature. And defect resolution at the phase, we will look at any findings or any issues that come up during the system testing, and you will fix it during that phase. And after which, you can plan for go live, handover and training. And we do recommend the SAP GRC enhancement workshop needs to be held in order for you to identify key areas of improvement that can be looked at after the upgrade. Now, as this is the technical upgrade, what should not be in the scope will essentially be a functional upgrade, such as new SAP GRC functionality component that needs to be upgraded. And rule set redesign, data migration is not needed for the upgrade, and process reengineering and full functional and authorization testing. Now, I'd like to stress here that Turnkey, we have been delivering upgrades and also implementation of SAP GRC as a project, but we are also able to deliver that as part of our Bedrock managed services. Moving on to our next slide. Technical upgrade. During technical upgrade stage, GRC 12.0 environment will be upgraded along with several areas, including the NetWeaver, UI, and GRC component. We could talk a bit about the technical prerequisite. So there are two areas that we should focus on. One is the SAP shared components. What upgrade that is needed will be the SAP NetWeaver upgrade, needs to be upgraded to NetWeaver 7.52, as well as the SAP UI components needs to be upgraded to 7.52, Service Spec 02, and the corresponding component. And as for the GRC components, so GRC FND _A will need to be upgraded, and the two plugins, which is GRC PIN-W and GRC PIE-RP, would need to be upgraded for target systems. Moving on to the next. Under the testing and deployment, so at this stage, the system has been upgraded, so it has to be tested to ensure that SAP GRC 12 is working correctly. The testing process itself comes with a number of parts, mainly positive testing. Now, during positive testing, the upgraded new features needs to be tested and ensure that it's working. And under regression testing, this is the phase where we need to ensure that current functionality of the system that's been maintained during the upgrade process is working and nothing has been lost. And finally, in the security testing, now since GRC 12, the settings and functionalities has been redesigned to improve security, so it's essential that this needs to be set up and checked during the upgrade process to ensure everything is working and the system is secured as possible. And this will lead me to my next point, which is the pre-cutover enablement session held to engage key users. So in this phase, essential that key users are being exposed to the new features, as well as to ensure that they have exposed to the new look and feel of GRC 12. And finally, at the last stage, which is deployment, this is when the production environment is being upgraded, when we bring everything together and make the solution operational. And after the production environment has been technically upgraded, a full functional validation test should be performed. As we move to the next slide. Sorry. Oops, sorry. Okay. Now, again, we like to stress that the upgrade of GRC 12 is not difficult, neither is it complex. And we at Turnkey, we are ready to help you with your journey and also with your GRC 12 upgrade, as well as with your technical upgrade needs. Why Turnkey? Because we have a proven record with regards to SAP GRC implementation, including upgrades from version 10.0 and 10.1, as well as customers that we upgraded to GRC 12. Our tried and tested methodology will facilitate a rapid deployment solution, while at the same time operating the necessary quality assurance mechanism to ensure successful transition and the immediate realization of benefits associated with GRC 12.0. Now, our skilled consultant, many of them have done many implementation, which means that the defects identified during the testing phase, during UAT, can be resolved quicker. And our approach make it easy for end user to adopt the upgraded environment and functionality. I'll come to the last point. I will now hand over the session to Simon.
Fantastic, thank you, Lewis. So yeah, that's a really good walkthrough of some of the key phases that we see as part of our methodology there, and that's really good to try and bring it to life and understand exactly what would need to happen and some of the things that we'd need to see from a client point of view. So that's really good to understand what the end-to-end things look like. So we have had a couple of questions that have been put through to us already. So the first one is actually from the group, and it's back to Thomas really, that says, with 2020 being the year of U-turns and backtracks and all sorts of things, is there any chance that SAP are going to give a stay of execution on that retirement date of the previous versions? Or is 31st of December this year still a hard and fast date for the return of, well, for the retirement of the previous versions?
As far as I know, yes. There hasn't been, that I'm aware of, any discussion of postponement to that. 31st of December 2020 is indeed the date for the end of maintenance. I spoke with product management a few weeks ago on this topic, and nothing seems to indicate we would change that. Now, to me, customers have basically three options, two that have been discussed here. One is a technical upgrade. The other one is so you just upgrade to be in the latest version. The other one is functional upgrade, so that you then benefit from the new features. Or the last option is to go and extended maintenance, which is always an SAP option. It's an additional fee, but for non-supported versions, you can always do that. Now, what we won't do is we won't cut your access if you are in 10.1 on 31st of December. That's not what we do. You just won't be on a supported version anymore.
Super. And I think that the follow-up to that would be, what does that mean in real terms from customers' point of view? If they are on a legacy version or they are on an unsupported version, what does that mean with their interaction with SAP or their ability to use the tools?
Ability to use tool is not impaired. They can always do it. Now, if they want improvements, if they want to download upgrades or stuff like that, it won't be available anymore. That's the major issue. So I personally feel it's a shame because we continue to improve on the tools, and it's not just us having information, it's partners like yourselves, it's customers raising topics, and all the enhancements are on the new versions. So customers won't be able to benefit from it. And I had a discussion recently with a customer on version 3.0. Simon, you may recall that version. 3. Wow. And they were complaining, they were saying that the UI is not good and so on and so forth, until I realized they were in 3.0. So yes, it's true, the UI wasn't fantastic at that time. It's a lot better now. But unfortunately, they had decided not to upgrade. So when I showed them what 12.0 was, I think it made a big difference to them. Absolutely.
That's like a different world, isn't it? It's going from mainframes into fantastic mobile compliant everything. So yeah, very, very good. Very good. And a question for Lewis that's just come through as well. So Lewis, when you spoke about those effort estimates, were they actually effort estimates, or was that kind of elapsed time just to talk about the end-to-end upgrade cycle?
I think it's more on the elapsed time. So we're talking about 2 or 3 months, but a lot is depending on the client change process, as we need to know how is their change management process for moving the transport across the landscape, as well as how about the customization scope that they want to put in during the technical upgrade.
Fantastic. And you mentioned about the customizing approach there to say what's in and what's out from our standard offerings. Is that flexible on a client by client basis? Like, could we add some of those additional items into the scope if they needed to?
I suppose it's a question of how quick they want the technical upgrade to be. So I think the typical guideline is, if you want it to be straightforward, try to minimize on your customization. Try not to do too much. Because the more you put in, the more customization you want, the more new functionality you want to implement, the longer it will take for you to upgrade it.
Absolutely, and certainly a view from the trenches at the moment, we've just done an upgrade with a different customer in the UK, and going through the SPAL lists and all of the technical changes that you need to evaluate. The more customization you have in your system, the longer those sorts of things will take, and then you have to go back and try and find the documentation as to why is that a Z thing in the first place. So yeah, we'll definitely support that view, but of course the scope could be flexible if we needed it to, and if you particularly wanted it to. So all good from that point of view. Now, we've had a couple of questions that have come in just in the meantime. First one's a little bit of a challenging one for you, Thomas, so I'll see how you wriggle out of this one. But Flash Player is being retired or depreciated across the browsers. Now, obviously, a lot of even the Fury content is dependent upon Flash working. Is there any way of republishing those dashboards from the reports and analytics capability into something that's going to be supported long term? And what's
that is a great question. That's a great question. So let me answer it in threefold: access control, process control, risk management. So that's okay, because each have different capabilities for Flash. So for access control, it was mostly on dashboards. It was access rule library, user analysis, role analysis, access requests, and so on and so forth. There won't be a one-to-one replacement. What we decide instead is using the overview pages. We have the report cards, which are the small snippets reports. These will have the very same information, but in an overview page, which means it's an SAP technology, so it will be upgraded. Now, you may recall that I mentioned the first overview page was already, overview pages already available in access control since version 12.0. More will be delivered in SP11, which is the next support package in a couple of weeks. That will include more cards. So already we cover most of them. More will be added, but it won't be a one-to-one replacement. So we won't publish a new link in the web dimper screen for a replacement of the Flash report. For process control, there were two things. First, there were reports like evaluation status dashboard and overall compliance status dashboard. But the second thing you may recall is the policy profiles. Within the policy profiles, when you open the surveys, you had a pie chart that was Flash-based. So for policy profile, there is already an SAP note that replaces it. You implement the SAP note and automatically it's changed by new technology. The look and feel is exactly the same. So it's still pie chart, still the same colors, it's just replaced. For the two reports, it will be again, like in access control, an overview page. It's planned to be delivered in support package 11. Again, the two reports that I mentioned for process control. For risk management, there are actually three things. The heat map, but the heat map was already, there is already a Web Dimpro version available for many years. It's not the default one. The default one is still the Flash one, unless you go to Web 2.12.0, in which case it becomes the Web Dimper one. So that is already available. You can already use it. There were 4 reports that I can recall: the overview, the last overview, loss event overview and loss event structure. These are already replaced by SAP notes and were already replaced in support package 10, which was released in October, if I recall well. So that's already catered for. And the second thing, which was the bow tie builder. The original bow tie builder in 10.1 was Flash. It had already been, in 10.0 was Flash. It had already been replaced by a Fiori, a UI5 bow tie. So that is already taken care of. So yes, Flash is going away. We're not going away. We have replacement options for all of them.
Excellent. Very comprehensive answer there. And I look forward to seeing all of that. And that links to actually another question that's provided, which talks about support pack versions and what levels are available. And I think if I've understood the question correctly from Suresh here, it's saying that it's mostly dependent on the PAM. So product availability matrix, I believe, is the acronym rather than privileged access management. There's too many overlaps there. But what's the minimum level recommended for a technical upgrade? Now, I'm not sure this one's for you, Thomas, because I'm sure you'll say always take the latest because that's where all the features are. But Lewis, do you have an opinion on that?
I probably will see what Thomas have said. Use the latest.
Okay, excellent. So I'll temper that a little bit by saying there's always an aspiration from all of us to get our clients onto the latest, but practically speaking, there is a little bit of reticence and tentativeness in the market that you don't want to be the beta testers for SAP's functional releases. That puts quite a lot of trust in the vendor to have done every single use case test ever in the world to satisfy your own individual client perspectives. So yeah, normally the strategy would be the latest if it's possible, but take a look at those side effects reports and understand what's been reported elsewhere so that we can sort of minimize that risk. So some clients go to latest -1, and we tend to recommend that we would go to the latest wherever possible, just to minimize that well, contemporary deficiency, really close the gap on what's the latest and greatest. But that's always a scope exercise, and I think that's alluded to in the first part of Lewis's presentation when we say that that's the really important thing, getting your technical target patch level sorted out first and foremost. Excellent. So we've got another one that's more specific to process control, where it's talking about the integration with HANA. And I know you spoke about the cloud connector, Thomas, but certainly within Turnkey, we've been working on HANA connections and CDS views in particular to see how we can actually get more enriched data sets. And we've actually got that as a standard service offering that we can do now from a CCM point of view. But the specific question is, what are the different ways we can leverage HANA-based monitoring for analytics, and how can we make best use of that from a transaction monitoring point of view? So I don't know whether, Thomas, you've got any particular opinions or insights over and above that.
I actually think you're more expert than I am in this domain. You've done it. No, it's true. It's true. I know the theory of it. I've practiced it just a couple of times, but you guys have such an experience on this. I'd prefer to defer to you. Brilliant.
Okay. Yeah. So I suppose to my previous comments, we've done that. We've looked at it in some great depth on both our internal lab systems and in our client environments as well. So we're making great strides for doing exactly that and using HANA wherever it exists in the landscape to try and enrich those CCM alerts, but also the KRI side of things as well. Because once you've looked at it from the productive operation point of view, you can look at it in a preventative case from a risk point of view as well. So you're really getting valuable insight both before it's happened and as it's happened or after. We've also linked up business integrity screening and ETD to process control so that those greater levels of scale and volumetrics can be used as the brawn and still reporting back into your compliance brain, which is your process control environment. So please, we'll greatly appreciate a conversation about what you're trying to achieve and see how we can pick that up offline. Super. The final question that I think we're going to have time for today really is a very nice one to close on, that's saying, what's the main challenges when performing a technical upgrade to 12.0? So Lewis, are you able to sort of explain a little bit about any sort of technical challenges that you've seen, or anything that's coming out of your Malaysian delivery hub?
Well, I think for ours it's more on the I think the biggest challenge we have is customers trying to do too much. So the focus is more on delivering it very quickly, technical upgrade. But then as we come into the midst of the assessment, so the customer will try to ask for more features, ask for more functionality. So that actually sidetrack a lot of the deliverables. For example, like they ask for rule set redesign. So we know that GRC 12 do come to the rule set. And so, so they will get into discussion as to can we implement a new rule set. So these are some of the pitfalls I would say we should look out for. So I think the focus is on implementing it quickly. So we need to make sure that we have to stay focused on that. Not like I said earlier, not do too much. So all those that we can do after the implementation.
Absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree that scope management is one of the biggest challenges, and trying to make sure that we understand exactly what's in and what's the right outcome. I'd also add to that is what you picked up on a few things in your session about the enablement of the key users and the end user community, and I think that really alludes back to the title of your session, where you said making the technical upgrade feel easy, or making it easy. And I think certainly the way that we go about things, it's as much about making it easy for the end users, because it is a transition, it is a change. Now everybody wants to have those new features enabled, but if you just dump the upgrade on them and say, right, there you go, find your own way, particularly with a Fury interface that looks and feels slightly different. If you're moving from one launch pad where it was over here and you played it nicely in that box, and now suddenly where's the thing that I use every minute gone?
That's right.
That's eminently frustrating and leaves a bad taste in the mouth of the end user community. So I think trying to enable and bring forward the key user community to understand what the upgrade means, and doing that empathetic change management piece from an upgrade is something where some of our competitors often fall down, that they view it just as a technical exercise rather than a business change exercise. So I think those two things, exactly as you say, scope management and understanding what's in from a more end user centric view, are probably the challenges to avoid. In terms of the technical defects, I think, well, Thomas, you've alluded to it, that those defects are handled predominantly by SAP notes, and the GRC 12 system is not new. Particularly, it's not leading edge technology in terms of it's fraught with technical frailties. So I think most of the support packs are becoming very stable now, and it's a trustworthy release. So it's very seldom that we see huge amounts of technical defects that we need to raise back to SAP. But the advantage of using us is that more often than not, SAP asks us the questions of how to fix it, so we can accelerate that defect resolution path if we do find anything that's customer centric. Wonderful, guys. So that's all of the questions that we had pre-submitted or through the session. We've used up all of the ones that I had as well. So I think we've come to the end of the time. We've come to the end of the critical mass of questions. So I think all that's left to say really is thank you very much to you, Thomas. Thank you to you, Lewis, as well for the contribution throughout. And hopefully we'll get some great interactions, and we'll move those last remaining customers up from 10.1 onto the 12. Release, so they can harness all of the benefits, future-proof their S4 landscape, and make all things great from a compliance point of view. Thanks very much for joining, and we look forward to speaking to you all soon.
Thank you, everyone.